Today, I'm going to be ranking the top 10 small forwards of all time. This is the third video of a 5-part series where I upload daily my top 10 of each position of all time. The past 2 days I've uploaded the point guards video and the shooting guards video. If you missed those, they'll be linked down below in the description. Make sure to go check those out as well. For the small forwards, it's very interesting. You can already think of some of the great all-time small forwards, and there's a lot of very interesting player comparisons in this list. So let's get into it. But before we start, make sure you guys follow me on Instagram at Daniel_Dolari. For the last 2 videos, I've posted some comparisons of the point guards and shooting guards in my story there with polls. I'll do that here too. And in general, if you're going to follow the channel, this is something you should do since I post updates on the channel. And like I mentioned, post a lot of interactive NBA polls in my story. So if you're going to follow the channel, make sure you follow me there. And now let's get into the list of top 10 all-time small forwards. As always, starting off with some honorable mentions. There's a lot of all-time great small forwards, and for the point guards and shooting guards video, I had 3 honorable mentions for each, but for this one I've got 5, and those honorable mentions go to Tracy McGrady, who would have made the list if it wasn't for injuries, and then the others are Vince Carter, Carmelo Anthony, Paul Pierce, and James Worthy. All of them are great overall players that if they were on, for example, power forward or shooting guard lists, probably have a better chance of making it, but all of them were just not as dominant throughout their career as the other guys I put on the list. So they just missed out, but they get some honorable mentions. Starting off the list now, at number 10, I've got Dominque Wilkins. In my opinion, Dominque is one of the most underrated players ever. I don't think people realize that for his career, he put up 25 points and 7 rebounds consistently over his career. That's very good, and he wasn't always the greatest playmaker or defender, and never won any championships or MVPs. So he kind of reminds me of last list on last video, George Gervin, when he ranked here at 10, basically just because of his scoring ability, and that's basically what Dominique's doing here. Like I mentioned, he's very underrated, and people don't remember that he averaged 25 points for his career, and basically just for that, he has to be on the list because of his dominance. At number 9 on the list, I have Rick Barry. Rick Barry is a guy that I don't know much about, but I saw ESPN listed him at 43rd on their all-time list, and after doing some research about him, I found out that he also throughout his career averaged 25 points per game and really revolutionized the game by shooting underhanded free throws, not caring about his ego, and actually becoming one of the best free throw shooters ever because of that. So I found that very interesting. A very good overall player who made the All-Star game many times over his career back when he played in the 70s, and definitely ranks here in the top 10 of all-time small forwards. At number 8, I've got John Havlicek. John Havlicek is one of the most underrated players, just like Dominque Wilkins, in my opinion, throughout his career. I actually have him in the top 30 on my all-time list, and here at number 8 on the small forwards. He was an incredible overall player and should be considered one of the greatest Boston Celtics of all time. He played his entire 15-year career with them and was a very good scorer, rebounder, pretty good playmaker, and very good defender, could guard pretty much anyone on the floor, very versatile, and made the all-defensive team 8 years in his career. He was definitely a very good overall player throughout his career, and that's why he's ranking here at 8. At number 7 on the list, I've got Elgin Baylor. Elgin Baylor is a guy that not a lot of people know because he played in the 60s, but really should be considered a top 30 player of all time because of just how dominant he was. For his career, he averaged 27 points per game and 13 rebounds, an incredibly dominant and overall player as a small forward, and played his entire 13-year career with the Lakers. What hits his legacy a little bit is the fact that, yes, he did play in the 60s and didn't have a lot of competition, and he made the NBA Finals 9 times, which is incredible, but didn't win a single one of them as he kept losing to Bill Russell and the Celtics. And now his overall record in the final is 0-9. So that really takes a hit to his legacy, but he's still an incredible overall player and should definitely rank here at 7 at the very least. At number 6, I've got Scottie Pippen. We know what Scottie Pippen's about. He was a guy that was a very good overall offensive player and defensive player, making the all-defensive team many times throughout his career and making tons of all-star games, and won 6 championships. And that is really what defines his legacy, and even though he was a second option to Michael Jordan, he was still a very dominant player that none of those championships would have happened without him. The fact that he was a second option throughout most of his career and was never really an MVP type of player, except for those years when Michael Jordan was playing baseball, takes a little bit of his hit to his ranking here, and there's a guy I put at 5 who ranks very slightly over him for the reason of being a finals MVP and MVP type of player, but Scottie definitely still has to rank here for being the best second option player we've ever seen, and really an all-time great player on both ends of the floor. At number 5, I've got Kawhi Leonard. So you can see what I was talking about here with the comparison to Scottie Pippen, a very tough one, and over Kawhi's career, he's a 2-time finals MVP, a 1-time defensive player in the year, and has really solidified himself, at least in my opinion, as a top 30 player, as he's one of the best two-way players we've ever seen. And he has a lot of similarities to Scottie Pippen. They're probably equal on the defensive end of the floor, two of the best defenders of all time. And then Kawhi is just a little bit more dominant on offense, and the difference between them is that Kawhi has led a team to a championship twice. Scottie has 6, and that's why a lot of people would still rank Scottie Pippen over him, but Kawhi led his team to the finals and has the finals MVPs to back it up. That 2019 season with my Toronto Raptors, where he was carrying them on both ends of the floor all the way to the championship, is what really boosts his legacy here, and he wouldn't be in the top 5 without that year. But that was incredible, and we see how good he can be in the playoffs when he's at his best, and just how dominant of an overall two-way player he is, and that's why he ranks in the top 5 small forwards of all time for me. At number 4 on the list, I've got Julius Erving. Putting Dr. J's ABA career aside for this one, in his NBA career, he still won an MVP and an NBA championship, which really boosts his legacy. And throughout his career, he was consistently a dominant scorer, almost leading the league in scoring a few years. He did that in the ABA, but like I said, we're putting his ABA career aside here. But even in the NBA, he averaged around 25 points per game for his career. And like I mentioned, his legacy is boosted by the fact that he even won an MVP and won a championship. He was also a very good rebounder, did the little things very well, and will go down as one of the best players of all time, especially for his era. So all of these reasons and the fact that, as I mentioned for the 3rd time now, his MVP and his championship really boosts his legacy is why Dr. J is ranking here at 4 for me on the small forwards list. At number 3, I've got Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, throughout his career, has won an MVP and 2 championships, and really should be considered a top 3 small forward of all time by anyone. While his rings might not mean as much because he teamed up with the Golden State Warriors and Splash Brothers, it still does because he was dominant in those seasons and in those finals runs, and like I mentioned, proved it with an MVP the prior year in 2014, and is really one of the greatest scorers of all time. I wouldn't consider him the greatest yet, but by the end of his career, he could be, and we all know what he can do on the offensive end of the floor. He's an absolutely incredible scorer that can pull up from anywhere on the court, is 7 foot, so his jump shot's obviously unstoppable, can get to the rim, and even showing that throughout his career, he can play off ball and shoot the 3 if you need him to. He's an incredible overall scorer, we know that, and some people would even consider him a top 10 player of all time, which for me is a little bit much for now, and I wouldn't be so fast to put him there yet, but at the end of his career, if he finishes his career off with the Brooklyn Nets very strong and shows that he's come back from this Achilles injury even better, which is very rare, he could definitely be considered the greatest scorer of all time and a top 10 player of all time if he continues his dominance with the Nets. At number 2, I have Larry Bird. 3-time MVP, 3-time NBA champion, and one of the greatest players in the 80s, if not the greatest player, and for me is a top 10 player of all time without a doubt. Larry Bird versus Kevin Durant, though, is turning into a very interesting comparison, and I've been with Larry all the way, but it's getting closer and closer, and for this video, it was very hard to decide. But what I've decided on is kind of the same thing I did with the Steph Curry versus Magic Johnson comparison. If Kevin Durant wins one more MVP and one more NBA championship with the Brooklyn Nets, that's when I put him in the top 10 of all time and potentially over Larry Bird. But for now, we still have to recognize how good of an overall player, scorer, rebounder, and defender Larry Bird was and rank him slightly over Kevin Durant. I mean, he's won 3 MVPs to Kevin Durant's 1, and that for me is even enough just to have him slightly over him. But Kevin Durant, as we know and as I mentioned multiple times, is one of, if not the greatest scorer of all time by the end of his career, and this could be a different story by the end. But for now, for all the reasons I've listed, I have Larry Bird at 2 on this list, and in my top 10 of all time without a doubt. And number 1 is LeBron James. No questions asked, and I still haven't said on the channel who I think's the GOAT between LeBron and MJ, and I'll probably make a video on that a few months down the road. So for you people that are loyal to the channel and watch every video of mine, stay tuned for that. But yeah, LeBron is easily the greatest small forward of all time, and if you don't think so, then I don't know, watch more basketball. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 small forwards of all time. As I mentioned before, be sure to check out the point guards and the shooting guards video. And the next 2 videos of this series will be coming out in the next 2 days on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So I'm finishing off the year strong with this very fun series. As always, feel free to leave in the comments what you agree with, what you disagree with my list. And feel free to leave your own top 10 small forwards of all time in the comments. Thank you all for watching this video. As I mentioned, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Daniel_Delari. I'll put up some polls comparing these small forwards. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new so you don't miss out on any new videos. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow.